Hi, welcome to Teach Start, and today we're looking at the importance of starters for your subject and for your lessons. So, when your students walk in the class, think to yourself now, what are they doing? In most circumstances, unfortunately, what happens is they come in, they sit down. As a teacher, you're setting up the PowerPoint, that blooming cable's not going in. Oh, there we are, it's gone in. And it's not coming up on the overhead projector. Oh, and you've got to do the register. So let's set the register up. They're sitting there. In a lot of circumstances, they're sitting there for between 5 and 10 minutes whilst you set up the lesson. I strongly feel that this is not the right approach, and some schools, school-wide, have completely changed this approach. Your students must not be given any window that they've got nothing to do at all in your lesson. Now, most teachers are really good at that from a minute 5 or 10 onwards. For the rest of the lesson, they're constantly doing something. However, the start seems to be probably the most important bit of the lesson, because it sets the tone for the lesson, and the most poorly implemented part of the lesson when it comes to getting the students to work. So what are the barriers? Well, the starter's on the PowerPoint, and so you can't get that HDMI cable in or the VGA adapter in, and the projector's not working, and the last teacher's had it like unplugged, whatever. Don't do starters on a PowerPoint at all. You can do the second part of a starter on a PowerPoint, but the very first thing that they do not put it on a PowerPoint. Well, how do we resolve this? Well, worksheet, absolutely fine. Get there on the way in. They can collect a worksheet, just put it near the door of the classroom, or stand there and give it to them as they come in. Absolutely fine. Problems with that is that some schools, and in fact a lot of schools, are strapped for cash, and they don't like you photocopying like 30 sheets of paper for every lesson. Now, you can trim them down and do kind of 3 starters on 1 page or whatever, but that seems to be kind of between you and your school whether that is seen as acceptable, and you need to get buy-in from your line manager that they understand why you're doing it and the purpose of it to get them started. In some subjects, but not all, you can write a question on the board, and you can just get your pen out, like as the bell goes, as you walk in, write the question on the board. Right, I want you to discuss this, I want you to do this in your books. That's absolutely valid. I don't think that works for all subjects, for all topics. Sometimes the topic you're doing doesn't have anything that you could just write a question on. On that, you might have heard me say, and they can write it in their books. Well, how do you get their books out? Well, the most common way is that you have kind of book monitors or people to hand out the books, or the teacher does it, and they're spending 5 minutes handing out the book. Now, the last person on the pile has still waited 5 minutes doing nothing. So for me, that's not acceptable. In my classrooms, don't do that. What I do for, and this works for lessons with books, is I lay them out at the front of the class, and I lay them out in a way that they're kind of staggered so they can read their names and find their books. And some teachers say to me, "There's no way that will work," and they come into my lesson to observe, and the students just do it, because I've been doing it from day one or early on. So if you're watching this video after it's just come out, you can start now. The students are used to doing it. They don't even query it. They don't argue about it. They just get their book and go and sit down and get started. So the importance of leaving their books, if you have books or folders or whatever it is, leaving them out on that front desk and getting the students to come in and collect them. Now, just a little bit of a tip, a side note on that. Some students who sit at the front kind of moaned a little bit about having the leftover books on their desk. So a few years ago I said to them, and I've started doing this since, when the last person comes in from the initial group, because there's always like a group that have got there on time, could you just scoot up the remaining ones and put them in the box, like put them out of the way, and then when students come in late, they have to just flick through, and there's normally about maybe 5 or 6 books, and they flick through them and find their book. It's that easy, it's that simple. And actually that's worked a lot better. So I've got the students their books straight away, there's no waiting around. I personally have a booklet, a starter booklet, that I've agreed with line managers, and everyone's happy with it. In fact, it was so successful in both my previous schools, that across the whole department we had these booklets, because what these booklets allowed us to do was get started straight away. I didn't have to write anything on the board, there's no PowerPoint, they're doing it straight away. And the booklets, I know how many tasks there are in the booklet, so I know when I need to organise printing a new booklet out. And it worked out cheaper because you can get a lot more stuff to it, and the students valued it more because it wasn't just a sheet of paper, it was an actual booklet that they kept. So you know for your subject what you can do, whether it can be a verbal question that they're doing. I know that I have before like try to create a timetable where there's different starters for each lesson, and one of those was to go back through the previous lesson and see my comments that I wrote in their books, to respond to it, create a conversation in the marking, and to maybe write themselves another question that was kind of based on that previous lesson, and to be self-reflective. I know that I haven't done this as much, but I wish I did. I've got them to peer mark before, so they swap books and they look at each other's work and they assess them and write a comment on. Normally, what I say is it has to be a positive comment, and sometimes you could do WWEBI and then write a constructive criticism of their work, as well as something that went well. So there's loads and loads and loads of things you can do. In your subject, you might be thinking, oh, I could do this, or we've got this equipment there that we normally did after the starter, but actually they could do it now as they come in. So there's lots and lots of things you can do. Just my rule of thumb is, if they're sitting doing nothing, then that to me is a complete disaster, and that's how I rate myself and my lessons, as to how much of that lesson have I used. If it's an hour lesson, you should use 58 minutes of it. There shouldn't be any lull periods, apart from sometimes that last 2 minutes when I know the bell's going to go and I want them organised, and I will talk about this in a different video, but I have never overrun my lessons because I plan them to a T, and I know throughout the lesson where I'm falling behind, where I'm going too quick, and I plan my lessons so I can adjust for that. I've always finished my lessons on time because of that, but we'll talk about that in another video. But then I've got my 58 minutes out of the 60, and you can't ask for better than that. So I hope you find this video useful. If you do, please click like. If you want to see more from us, please click subscribe. Thank you very much. Oh, before you go, you can subscribe to us here, and this is our previous video, and this is another video from us. We release videos every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much.